I gathered the tampons, some snacks, and Tylenol for Kaylee, then proceeded to the register. Mike initiated some small talk with me. I don't remember the exact words due to my faulty memory, but it went something like this. "Hi, Ms. Murray. How are you doing?" "I'm alright. I'm just picking up some supplies for my son's girlfriend," I replied. I remembered he laughed then and said, "Speaking of your son, I haven't seen him in a few weeks. I need him to return my PlayStation controller he borrowed. Can you tell him that?" I felt sick again. I didn't want to draw attention to my son, so I decided not to mention the stories my son had been telling me. I just smiled and assured him I would let my son know. I paid for my items and left quickly. I drove to Kaylee's house and gave her the supplies, but I was at a loss for words. She was carefree, laughing and smiling. She asked me about my son's whereabouts. I couldn't bring myself to lie to her. So, I answered honestly, "I don't know. I didn't know where he was or who he was with." I suggested she call him and ask. She thanked me, and I left her house. Later that night, around 8 p.m., my son finally arrived home. I didn't say much to him, just asked if he had a good time. He replied positively and retreated to his room. I knew I had to tell Kaylee what had happened, so I retreated to my room and called her. I relayed to her what Mike had told me and how late my son had come home. She revealed that he had claimed to have been home hours ago, but said he was too tired to visit. I could tell she was crying. I asked her if she wanted me to come over. I went to her house, and we talked about everything. She confessed she didn't want anything more to do with my son and planned to break up with him immediately. I assured her that she could do so, and if she wished, she could be honest and say I had told her. After comforting her for a few hours, she asked if she could still reach out to me even if she wasn't with my son. I agreed, though honestly, I was hesitant. I loved her, but the situation felt strange. Nevertheless, I would still be there to support her. A few days later, my son approached me, tears in his eyes. Kaylee had ended things with him, and she hadn't given him a reason. Of course, I comforted him. He told me she needed time to think and would tell him why when she was ready. For the moment, she was apparently at a loss for words. I was too, so I couldn't blame her. He wept for hours, in his room and in my arms. Despite his actions, despite what I had done, I comforted him. I wanted to reveal the truth to him, and I felt guilty that he was in the dark. I couldn't bear to see my son like this. I had to tell him. "Honey, we need to talk about it." "About what?" he asked. "Me and Kaylee know what you've been doing." I caught on, and I told her. My son froze. His eyes were wide open in fear. He looked down, and then he looked back at me. He bawled his eyes out. "I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this to her. I didn't mean to do this to you." I took a deep breath. Tears were welling up in my eyes as he hugged me. "You need to come forward and tell her, honey. Speak to her. Be honest." He wiped his eyes and nose. "Mom, coming out as a furry isn't that easy." That was not what I was expecting to hear. You're a what?" His eyes grew wide. He howled in embarrassment as he buried his face in a pillow. "I thought you knew. You said you knew." I knew something was up, but I didn't. My voice trailed off. He ran to the other room in embarrassment. As I saw him leaving, I noticed he was wearing a gray tail. It looked like some sort of wolf tail. There was no clip for it to be attached.